Hello to all of you, our viewers. A pleasure as always that you're able to join us for this latest edition of the news in English on Rwanda Television. My name is Sarah Shinhori. We'll begin with the headlines. President Paul Kagame has told Jeune Afrique that Rwanda will not tolerate anything that could threaten the country's security. Prime Minister Dr. Justin Nsengiyumva has explained that although the effects of the war in the Middle East are also being felt here in Rwanda, the country still has sufficient reserves of essential goods. And on the international scene, world food commodity prices have risen for a second consecutive month, driven largely by increasing energy costs linked to the escalating conflict in the Middle East. Now, straight to the details. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Kagame, has told Jeune Afrique that Rwanda will not tolerate anything that could threaten the country's security, which is why it will not remove its defensive measures near the border it shares with the Democratic Republic of the Congo, while the issue of the FDLR terrorist group in the eastern DRC remains unresolved. In the interview, the journalist Francois Soudan asked President Kagame about the possibility of removing the security measures along the Rwanda-DRC border, and he explained that this would not be possible as long as threats to the country's security still remain.
If I'm defending my border, one morning I'm in 5 kilometers or 10 or 20 because of what I identified as a threat. And in another week, they have pulled back, or in another week, if there was an equipment to deal with the matter that is threatening you, so I mean, there is no contradiction. Defensive measures have always been outlined as being there. First of all, having announced ourselves in different places, defensive measures we take. And defensive measures do not mean one thing. We refuse to remove defensive measures. Whether it means troops and whatever else, we call it defensive measures. And in your logic, why would a threat be against me? And you are asking me to remove my defensive measures, but you are not dealing with the threat.
President Kagame also explained that the sanctions imposed by the United States on the Rwanda Defense Force and some of its officials will not isolate Rwanda diplomatically.
Really, literally, just insults being hurled at Rwanda as if we have done anything other than defending ourselves and making sure that no threat crosses the border into Rwanda from anywhere, and this particularly from Eastern Congo. It's like you are blaming the victim and praising the perpetrator. So the easiest thing to do here is to blame Rwanda and heap all the penalties and whatever onto Rwanda because it is easy. They are doing what is easy for them to do.
He also spoke about the collaboration between the government of the DRC and the FDLR terrorist group through the relationship President Tshisekedi has with Jean-Luc Habyarimana, the son of Rwanda's former president.
Habyarimana's son, in this case, is not just an individual. Tshisekedi of Congo has been trying to use him to mobilize the opinion, the support for FDLR. There are many people in France, by the way. It's not Jean-Luc Habyarimana's son who lives there. Out of those constitute a network that is in the leadership or in association with FDLR. And now, when it comes to being associated with the president of DRC, how do you minimize it and say it doesn't make any sense? And when we are telling you that what is on the ground is actually a collusion and association between FDR and the FARDC.
President Kagame has also affirmed that Rwanda needs to live in peace with its neighbors, especially the DRC, provided it stops actions that threaten the country's security.
Right now, even in a conflict, as we said earlier, the zone controlled by FCM23 is not an immediate danger to us. So, to some extent, we are comfortable with that. But we know that that is not the end of the road. There is a lot of work to be done in the context of there's Eastern Congo, but there is the whole of Congo. So, can Eastern Congo or the whole of Congo not be a danger to the neighbors, especially ourselves? These are the basic demands. I don't want anybody to threaten the security of our country. So we will be very hard on saying we have to secure our border. There's no question about it, by all means.
Now, on the issue of withdrawing Rwanda's troops from Mozambique because of the European Union's funding situation, the president pointed out that the deployment of the troops is not based on that funding and that such support should in any case have been in Mozambique's interest.
Presence there does not even depend on European Union, which was even giving a fraction of what we are actually spending.
$20 million.
Yeah, $20 million. But we are spending about 4 or 5 times that in running a force that is between maybe close about 5,000 plus the police force. No, we didn't ask for this 20 million before we even agreed to go and help Mozambique. And European Union, I don't know how they got confused about it, that they would be giving this money as a favor to us. No, actually it is a favor to Mozambique that we are helping.
President Paul Kagame has also explained that the minerals Rwanda processes have their origin properly declared and that there is nothing preventing minerals sourced from outside Rwanda from being processed just like those mined within the country, since Rwanda has sufficient capacity to process them. Now, Prime Minister Dr. Justin Nsengiyumva has explained that although the effects of the war in the Middle East are also reaching Rwanda, the country still has sufficient reserves of essential goods that would sustain it for more than 6 months. He has said that Rwandans should draw lessons from this period by seeking domestic solutions for some of the things the country needs and by increasing production. The war that has now lasted for more than a month in the Middle East continues to affect the global economy, and its impact is being felt by many countries because nearly 20% of petroleum products sent to the international market pass through the Strait of Hormuz in that region. During a press conference, the Prime Minister was asked about the level of reserves of essential goods, especially petroleum products, at a time when the war is still ongoing, and he indicated that Rwanda currently has sufficient supplies to support it during the period ahead. The Prime Minister also again asked entrepreneurs not to work reduced hours because that lowers production and also prevents goods made in Rwanda from competing effectively on the market against imports. At this time when the global economy is under strain, the Prime Minister asked traders not to raise prices, warning that anyone found doing so will be punished. He also urged Rwandans to conduct themselves responsibly, just as they did during the difficult period of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, across the country, residents are expressing concerns about the rise in the prices of cooking fuels, including charcoal and gas, and are asking the government to regulate them as traders are charging different prices. It was at the end of March and the beginning of April that the prices of fuels such as charcoal and gas, as well as firewood, began to rise across markets and other points of sale throughout the country. Residents are worried about the price increases, and even where they buy them, the prices are not the same. They also point out that some traders are charging above the set prices. They say this is affecting small-scale consumers and petty traders who buy them wholesale. What the residents are asking for is the government to also provide subsidies for cooking fuels. As we just noted, Prime Minister Dr. Justin Nsengiyumva has asked Rwandans to be patient with the changes in prices because this is not a problem affecting Rwanda alone, but a global issue arising from the war in the Middle East, which has pushed up the prices of petroleum products. Figures from the 7th Integrated Household Living Conditions Survey show that 75% of households in Rwanda use firewood for cooking, 18.8% use charcoal, while 5.4% of households use gas and biogas as their primary cooking fuel. Now, students from the Rwanda Defense Force Senior Command and Staff College have visited Gicumbi District on a study tour aimed at learning about national programs related to environmental protection and addressing the effects of climate change. They visited various Green Gicumbi project activities, including soil conservation to fight erosion and increase agricultural productivity, forest restoration and sustainable forest management, as well as the sustainable use of energy. Before going to visit the projects, they first held discussions with the district authorities who explained the district's progress under these programs and highly appreciated the role of the Green Gicumbi project in helping them to protect the environment and raise public awareness in order to strengthen resilience to climate change. The visit is part of a broader program to examine the different measures the country has put in place to protect the environment and address the effects of climate change. Besides the Gicumbi district, they are also expected to visit other districts of the country and tour various projects. Now, as Rwanda prepares for Kwibuka 32, the chairman of Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center, has visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial, calling for urgent global action to preserve memory and confront denial, saying genocide remembrance must move beyond memory to action. William Evans Mutabazi has more on that visit.
The visit of Dani Dayan to the Kigali Genocide Memorial comes at a time when Rwanda is preparing to mark Kwibuka 32, the 32nd commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi. Paying his respect to victims, Dani emphasized the shared history between Rwanda and the Jewish people as nations shaped by tragedy and resilience.
The fact that we both are nation of survivors gives us a special responsibility, a responsibility that calls us not only to remember but to act. The most important thing is to act, and I think that Rwanda has been an incredible example for the entire world in that sense.
He warned of growing risks of genocide denial, particularly as time distances future generations from first-hand testimony.
So the most important thing is authenticity. We should collect testimonies. We should collect archival documentation about the tragedies that happened to both our nations. We have to fight relentlessly against those that deny or distort the events. In our case, in the case of the Jewish people, we have an additional hurdle, an additional barrier. Unfortunately, the last Holocaust survivors are passing away. The Holocaust happened more than 80 years ago, and the survivors are very old, and the next generation will not have the formative experience that we had to listen to a survivor. That will be, I am afraid, the happy hour of the denialist, the distortionist of history. Our task will be then much more difficult, but much more important, much more vital. At some point, Rwanda also will face that that problem, and we will always, as we did from decades, collaborate with Rwanda in memory, in education, in all the aspects of commemoration of the genocide.
Meanwhile, the Chief Executive Officer of Aegis Trust, Freddy Mutanguha, highlighted the long-standing partnership between Rwanda and Israel in genocide remembrance efforts.
This is really goes in the line of our partnership. Of course, the partnership and relationship between Israel and Rwanda, but also the Kigali Genocide Memorial and the Yad Vashem. We have a plan, we have a working relationship, mainly because the Kigali Genocide Memorial learned a lot from Yad Vashem since it started in 2004. So we've been having actually acquiring some of the capacity building in terms of collecting testimonies, in terms of understanding how to build up exhibitions like this, educational exhibition like this ones, but also been interacting with different people from Yad Vashem who've been actually providing more skills and knowledge on how to manage memorial like this one.
The CEO added that Kwibuka 32 is not only about remembrance, but also renewing commitment to confronting genocide ideology, starting within the region.
It's a time for all of us to remind ourselves that we still have work to do to make this country a great place to live, and where the genocide ideology doesn't have a place, where even the genocide ideology in the region doesn't have a place. So the Rwandans, it's a moment to remind ourselves that the commemoration is not only to pay respect to the victims of genocide, but also to take measures and also put our hands together to prevent ideology of genocide that is spreading around the world, especially in the region.
With Kwibuka 32 set to begin on April 7th, launching 100 days of national mourning for the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, this visit serves as a reminder that remembrance is not only about honoring the past, but also about strengthening the resolve to prevent such atrocities from ever happening again. William Evans, RwandaTV News.
Students pursuing technical and vocational education and training through a combined approach in which one part of their studies is done at school and the other in factories related to what they study have said that they appreciate this model because it has enabled them to understand what is required on the labor market, giving them confidence that they will complete their studies while being needed and able to deliver the expected results. This learning model is known as dual training or combined technical and vocational training. It originated in Switzerland and Germany and ensures that anyone who completes it finishes their studies as a fully prepared worker who understands everything required in the workplace. To this day, these countries are among those with some of the best skilled professionals in the world. In Rwanda, this approach has begun to show its uniqueness among those who have completed it, and it is now being expanded to other technical and vocational schools across the country. Teachers and leaders of the schools say that this approach enables students to know much more than those who do not study under it, but that its greatest value lies in the confidence it has built in them. For this approach to produce the desired result, students and school leaders have asked that industries or institutions that host them should also be further strengthened. The Director General of the RwandaTV board, that is Engineer Paul Mukunzi, has said that they adopted this approach in order to bridge the gap that existed between the knowledge provided in schools and what is needed on the labor market, though he noted that there are still aspects they continue to improve. A student in the dual learning system spends 50% of their time studying at school and the rest learning in a factory or institution that operates in the field related to what they study. It is currently being used in 16 schools with more than 2,000 students. It is expected to be rolled out across the country as more private institutions become available and are willing to host the students. The goal is that by 2029, under the second phase of the National Strategy for Transformation, half of students in technical and vocational education and training will be using this approach of study. Now, let me leave you for now, but stay with Rwanda Television because the programs are continuing. Until I see you again, it's goodbye.